I can start because I wrote it. The Commissioner of Education yesterday was granted the authority from the Board of Education to implement a mask mandate for age 5 and up in the Rockland, in all public schools. He has not yet exercised that authority. We anticipate that he will do so today, probably around midday. All right, so what he is going, all right, sorry. Yep, back one, please. The relaxing of this mandate, which is targeted towards October 1st, is tied to vaccination rates. Here in Rockland, we're doing very well with our vaccination clinics. We will let you know as soon as we know more about the details of this mask mandate. But what we anticipate is, as of today, there will be a mask mandate in all public schools in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, including us. Good. Here is our vaccination rate, which is really good. The big number is individuals with at least 1 dose. We're at 52% in our youngest age group, 69, and you can all read it going down the line. We are hosting, the target is 80% per building is what we're hearing. So we're going to go through some sort of process, HIPAA protected, not trying to big brother anybody. We're just trying to play with the cards we're dealt with. We're going to be figuring out and reporting to the state what we believe our vaccination rate is per building. And then the Commonwealth, in all likelihood, is going to then tell us what our masking options are or are not. We've hosted 1 clinic. We're hosting a 2nd clinic this Friday and this Saturday. You can go online to sign up. You can check your email to sign up. Everybody is welcome. You don't have to live in Rockland. You don't have to be an employee. You can be a family member. Everybody is welcome. However, we have to order them by tonight in order to have enough vaccines here for Friday and Saturday. Okay, so please, if you're not vaccinated and you want to be vaccinated, this is a wonderful opportunity for you to be vaccinated. The dates coincide directly with the DESE timeline for fully vaccinated by October 1st. So everyone who participates in this program will count in our 80% number for October 1st. All right, this is where it gets really mundane, and where your nurses have just been, and CNAs and everyone else has just been phenomenal. The definition of a close contact is shrinking. All right, individuals, by and large, who are within 6 feet of someone for 15 minutes are a close contact. You are a close contact whether or not you are vaccinated. However, what happens to you as a close contact does differ based on whether or not you are vaccinated. So, the good news, outside, no close contact. Football, outdoor sports, no close contacts because you're outdoors. You have to be indoors. The at-risk exposure is 2 days before the onset of symptoms or a positive test result if you're negative. Excuse me, if you're asymptomatic. Close contacts have to follow certain guidelines that we will be following. Again, these are not ours, all right? These are what we're being told that we need to do. So, next slide. So, you do not have to, if you are defined as a close contact, you do not have to test, you do not have to quarantine if the following things, if you apply any of these categories apply to you. You do, however, have to self-monitor for symptoms for 14 days. So, if you're asymptomatic and you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to test, you don't have to quarantine. If you're in the classroom, and this is specific per DESE, if both parties are masked and you're outside of 3 feet, it's 3 feet and out. 3 feet and in for 15 minutes over 24 hours. If you're on a bus, if you're masked and the windows are open, you are not a close contact. You are a close contact, but you do not have to test. You do not have to quarantine. You only have to self-monitor. People who have had COVID-19 within the past 90 days do not have to test, do not have to quarantine, as long as it's within 90 days and you're recovered from when you're exposed. All right? So these are the exemptions to testing. If you're vaccinated, you're still a close contact, but you don't have to test. Okay, so we'll work with you individual case-by-case basis, work with your classrooms individually on a case-by-case basis. We're implementing a test and stay program. What the test and stay program says is if you are asymptomatic, if you are determined to be a close contact that must test and/or quarantine, a way to keep folks in school, staff and kiddos, is implementing of a test and stay program. You can do the test and stay program if you are asymptomatic, you wear a mask. Right now we don't have a choice. You wear a mask, or you won't have a choice. You wear a mask in school at all times other than when eating or drinking. Every morning you come to school, and we're figuring out the logistics of this, you take a rapid test. If the kiddo or the staff member tests negative, they can stay. If they're positive, they go home. All right? And then you have to conduct your own self-monitoring for 14 days. You have to do that for 5 days. We will do it on weekends for sports and extracurricular plays, musicals, etc. We will have a 7-day-a-week testing program. PCR testing, this is the program that we've done all year long, and we're going to continue this option. This is for anyone who is symptomatic or has some sort of testing requirement. They want to test. We will test you. We have not turned away a person for testing. We will test everybody. So this is our PCR testing, where you go through your school nurse, we register, we're going to be setting a set time every day depending on courier service. And we're going to do it at the middle school, same location as we did last year. And you generally get your test results between 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning the following day. So that will continue. Quarantine guidelines. You can be required if a close contact refuses to participate in the test and stay program. What this will mean, technically only the Board of Health has the authority to quarantine. What we can do is deny entrance to the building. You cannot, if you choose not to participate in the test and stay program, you need to test negative on day 5, 6, or 7 from the last known exposure in order to return to school on day 8 if you are asymptomatic. And then you need to continue to self-monitor for 14 days. And if you at any point show symptoms in any of these categories, you should contact your school nurse and we'll arrange for PCR testing. So if you don't test and stay, you're out for 7, have to test negative on 5, 6, or 7, and you're back on 8. Or more, if you don't do either of those, you're out for 14. All right, additional COVID info. We have PPE, Mark, Ira Cola, all the custodians, everyone. We have enough PPE and hand sanitizer to have our own MASH division. We have air purifiers that have been purchased for all classrooms. We're still dealing with individual requests from folks. We're trying to accommodate every single request that we can. We're balancing, and I'm going to probably send a video around, the air purifiers versus fresh air, because there's benefits to both. And a lot of it will be self-comfort in your own, in your own classroom, what you're most comfortable with. All right, we definitely want to close the windows at night, run the air purifiers, because these air purifiers actually also treat surfaces with COVID. But fresh air is also an outstanding way to refresh the air and keep things clear. So we're working on that. COVID questions can be directed to your building nurse or to me. And you will be hearing from us. We're going to be in the buildings. I'll be walking around. Your nurses, we're meeting tomorrow. We're going to talk about all this stuff in more detail, break it down for you. But we felt it was important when we had you all here together, so everyone's on the same page and everyone understands what the state. These are all state requirements. According to the Board of Health, we have to at least meet the minimum of what the state is requiring. And these are the minimum, least restrictive guidelines currently available from the state, and that is what we have adopted. Okay, at this time, there's a school committee meeting this evening at 6:30. We're going to be hopefully going through the commissioner's report and discussing, once again, all things COVID. So rather than opening it up to questions here, if we could just field them individually, and I'll do my best to respond. All right, thanks everybody. We're going to go through all of these things in the presentation: civil rights, anti-bullying, confidentiality, mandated reporting, physical restraint, and safe technology use. Civil rights, laws, and regulations relative to public education. FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1974, protects the privacy of students' education records and gives parents certain rights with respect to those records. Individual student records are confidential. This extends to giving out individuals' addresses and telephone numbers. One of my favorite things is like the sign in the elevator that says, "Please do not discuss stuff here." That doesn't mean when you get out of the elevator you can discuss it. All right? So, confidentiality. What is confidentiality? Protecting all personally identifiable data applies to discussions, verbal and written, legitimate educational sharing, privacy of educational records, and emails are public record, whether they're from your phone or from a school device. Using your school email is a public record. Anti-bullying policy. Policy required by state law is on our website. All members of the school community should be alert to bullying. Staff who witness suspected bullying should make an oral report to the building administration. Principals will address bullying in more detail with their school staff. All allegations of bullying are investigated. Statistics on bullying allegation and instances are reported to the state. What is discrimination? That's all right. What is bullying? Bullying is the repeated use by one or more persons of a written, verbal, or electronic expression, or a physical act or gesture, or any combination thereof, directed at a target that causes physical or emotional harm, places the target in reasonable fear of harm, creates a hostile environment at school, infringes on the rights of the target at school, and or materially and substantially disrupts education. What is hazing? Nope. It's okay. We have a renegade clicker. What is discrimination and harassment? One incident can be sufficient to trigger civil rights concerns. Distinguished from state bullying law, bullying is repeated. Target is a member of a protected class, a person with a disability, gender identification orientation, race or ethnicity. No specific target is necessary. Bullying, discrimination, and harassment include, but are not limited to, nonverbal threats, intimidation, crude gestures, stalking, stealing or hiding possessions, excluding, isolating, unwelcome touching, spreading rumors or sending messages of an embarrassing, slanderous, or an intimidating nature, repeated or pervasive teasing, tormenting, name-calling, belittling, mocking, put-down sarcasm, or demeaning humor, in both the real and online worlds. What is hazing? Hazing refers to any conduct or method of initiation, even if consented to, into any student organization, whether on public or private property, which willfully or recklessly endangers the physical or mental health of any student or person and will not be tolerated. Such conduct shall include, but is not limited to, whipping, beating, branding, forced calisthenics, exposure to the weather, forced consumption of any food, liquor, beverage, drug, or other substance, or any other brutal treatment or forced physical activity which is likely to adversely affect the physical health or safety of any such student or person, or which subjects such student or other person to extreme mental stress, including extended deprivation of sleep or rest, or extended isolation. What should you do if you feel you have been a victim of discrimination or harassment, or if you feel someone else has been harassed or discriminated against? You should contact your principal, contact your supervisor. If necessary, contact me. We'll take it seriously. All right, everything will be investigated. Free Leahy. Woo!
Good morning. Welcome back. New year, but the same message. Keeping kids safe is one of the most important things we do. Mandated reporting and suicide prevention are incredibly important aspects of our work with students. Everyone in this room is a mandated reporter. We are all mandated to report suspected abuse or neglect to the Department of Children and Families. Any question about a student's safety or well-being, whether it be a conversation you overheard, an unexplained injury, or a student's report of abuse or neglect, is worthy of a conversation with your building principal, guidance or adjustment counselor, or school psychologist. We're watching for signs of self-harm or cutting in older students, or any reference to self-harm. These also must always be addressed and reported to building administrators or your adjustment counselor. We're also watching for changes in behavior, mood, appearance, or a significant drop in performance or participation. These can all be indicators that a child could be at risk to themselves or a victim of abuse or neglect. Any and all questions of abuse, neglect, or concerns about potential self-harm should be brought to your building administrator as soon as you are made aware of them. Please do not wait till the end of the day to reach out. It's always easier for us to address these concerns when the students are still with us in the building. Trust your gut. If something seems wrong, it probably is. Remember, it's not our job to investigate suspected abuse or neglect. It's just our job to report it. All the information is online under compulsory notifications, and these packets are out front, and I can always be reached at the high school at any time. Next, our beloved technology coordinator, Tim Wells, I think. Who's next? Linda Maniglia, sorry. Linda Maniglia. Thank you guys, have a great year.
I'll just try and see if we can do that.
It's just that button right there, okay?
Yep. Good morning. This presentation is just a general overview of the Massachusetts restraint and seclusion regulations and procedures. So during this annual mandated training, we'll examine changes to the restraint regulations, which includes updated definitions and the prohibition of prone restraint. We'll also review safety requirements, clarify the difference between a seclusion and a timeout, and review our reporting requirements. So the Code of Massachusetts Regulation 46, or CMR 46, governs all Massachusetts schools, which includes all public schools, charter schools, virtual schools, DESE-approved special ed schools, and collaboratives. And the purpose of this regulation is to make sure that restraint is used only as in emergency situations or as a last resort. So an example of an emergency situation would be when a student poses a threat of assault or imminent danger to self or others, or when a student is not responding to verbal directives or less intrusive interventions. So the revised definition of restraint is physical contact that prevents or significantly limits a student's freedom of movement. It does not include redirecting a student or physical escorts. There are several different kinds of restraint. There's mechanical, medication, seclusion, and prone. Now, mechanical would be when devices such as standers or wheelchairs are recommended or implemented by trained school personnel or medical professionals to improve a student's positioning or for protective purposes. And in that case, it is not prohibited. It would only be prohibited if it is used in a punitive manner. Medication that is prescribed by a licensed physician, and we have authorization by parents or guardians to administer during school is also allowed. Seclusion, on the other hand, is an involuntary confinement of a student, and usually the student is prevented from leaving a room or a certain area that is prohibited. And a prone restraint, where we have a student lay down face down on a flat surface or on the floor, and pressure is applied to their back. This could potentially interfere with breathing, and the prone restraint is also prohibited. A physical escort differs from restraint because it is a temporary touching or holding without force. And usually the purpose of a physical escort is to direct or guide a student to a safe location for the purpose of calming them down. Okay, so I'll just go over what is allowed under this regulation. And again, brief physical contact without force to provide student safety or to calm them down, light physical guidance or prompting during instruction, and providing comfort to a student that appears to be very upset. So as I said previously, this training is just a general overview. Staff from each of our buildings will receive an in-depth training on proper administration of restraint. Similar to just about everything we do in education, restraint prevention involves all stakeholders, including administrators, staff, our students, and families. Prevention can be accomplished when everyone is aware of our district policies, procedures, and rules. So the next couple of slides will be about our responsibilities and reporting requirements. So staff must promptly notify their principal or his or her designee if a student is restrained. The staff person must then follow up with a written report within 1 school working day. When a restraint lasts 20 minutes or longer, staff must seek principal's approval to continue with the restraint. So to summarize a few key reporting requirements, I'll just go over them again. All restraints must be reported as soon as possible and followed with a written report within 1 school working day. Next, principals must notify parents verbally within 24 hours, and then they must also follow up with a written report within 3 working school days. Parents and students have an opportunity to make comments about the report or to schedule a meeting to discuss the incident. So another mandate of restraint that we should note is that physical restraint should not be included in a student's behavior support plan or in their individualized educational plan as a response to challenging behavior. And all school districts must have a written statement about our beliefs about restraint. Our stance here in Rockland is that physical restraint will only be used in emergency situations by trained personnel, and all of our reporting mandates will be followed. So as I said earlier, one of the goals of revising CMR 46 was to clarify the difference between seclusion and timeout. Seclusion is an involuntary confinement of a student. The student is physically prevented from leaving that room or an area. whereas time out is a temporary separation from a classroom or an instructional area. For timeouts, a student may request a timeout, or a staff member may direct a student to a timeout area, and again, it's for the purpose of calming down. In either case, the student must be continuously observed, and the timeout space must be clean and safe. In addition, a building administrator must approve the continuation of a timeout if it lasts 30 minutes or longer. Timeout should be viewed as a support or calming down strategy, and students should never be left anywhere without a staff member continuously observing them. So for safety purposes, anytime a student is showing signs of escalating behaviors, staff should scan the room or the area where that student is and remove any sharp objects or any kinds of materials that could be potentially thrown. And if at all possible, we should remove other students that were in that area to another room and safer environment. So other safety requirements would be staff should be familiar with students' medical and psychological limitations whenever possible, and seek medical assistance if a student appears to be physically distressed. So following any restraint, it is a good practice to review with staff that might have been involved, and especially the students, to discuss what potentially led up to the restraint and what students can do in the future to avoid similar situations. In Rockland, we train our staff in the Nonviolent Crisis Intervention Program, and this year we will also be using safety care for our preschool staff and for our substantially separate program staff. So to conclude, I'll just review quickly that staff will use verbal directives and less intrusive de-escalating strategies whenever possible. Timeout is a calming strategy. Seclusion and prone restraint are prohibited. And again, physical restraint should only be used in emergency situations and as a last resort. So thank you, everyone, and welcome.